Hello, folks. This is Easter period, and then I know all of us are in a celebratory mood. Many of us have gone out, maybe in the parks and to the shops or to the pubs, to have one or two. Yeah, we're also celebrating over here. However, it is important that we do what we usually do on every Sunday. When it is on that note that we come again to across to you on the issue and the topic that we earlier advertised online, and that is what roles does culture play in the development of trade and commercial activities within a given space, within a community, between spaces, in a country, between countries. What are the roles that culture play? And I know that these roles are significant. So, as always, we have the normal cast, the guys who will tap into their resource and wealth of experience to try to give us insight into their own understanding and possibly help us to navigate some gray areas and bring many of us to understanding of certain things that seem confusing before now. So, as always, with me on this talk show and podcast are some of the faces you already know, and then they will be joining us in a few minutes or a few moments to try to, you know, walk us through some of these gray areas and walk us through some of the confusion and through the cobwebs of misunderstanding that I've always you know tried to color some of these things. So I'm hoping to bring them on as they come online. And while we are waiting for them, I just want to wish all of us a very, very happy and happy Easter celebration. I know that the reason for the occasion, for the season, is the death and the resurrection of Jesus. Many in this time and space seem to have lost track of the reason for the Easter. But for some of us who have tried to understand these things, it does not come as a surprise at certain times like this in the year. At times like this in the year, we mark the death and the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Without him, many of us wouldn't have known what it is like to be really free, to be talking about eternal life. So we're going online any moment from now with the crew, and then we hope that when they come, we'll try to do justice to this topic. So while I wait for them, I want to indulge us. I want to encourage us to, chime in with some contributions, some remarks, some questions. It will help us in a long way to really come to understanding of the issue at stake. So I'm waiting for my crew, the guys who will continue to, make our day, the guys who continue to, reach to certain, take us to certain level of understanding. And Mr. Samuel Ennard is coming. So let's hope that we kick off and we'll try to make this, as compact as possible and within a reasonable limit of time, so that our audience can roll with us. So we want to, as much as we can, keep this within 45 minutes to 1 hour. So like I was saying before I try to bring to Mr. Nadi on. I encourage us to, come on with your questions. Those questions that on those things that seem confusing rather. Would like to have you bring them on this platform. This is our interactive solution platform, and then we'll try as much as we can to, do justice to questions as they come. My guys are already waiting, and I'm trying to bring them on. So as they come, we try to, take off and do justice to this topic. Hello, Chedoze.
Yeah. Good evening, all. Good evening, all.
Chedoze, how are you? Happy Easter.
A wonderful Easter to all of you.
Yeah, I hope you're celebrating.
Yeah, I've been engaging with a couple of friends, and we've been happy,
Yeah, that is the reason for the season, the death and resurrection of Christ. I don't know
Yeah.
about Mr. Anna. They said he's a deist. He said he's a deist or deist. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he also. I don't know if he's celebrating also. But I'm bringing him on.
Okay.
I'm bringing him on. So I think it will be better when he comes on that we can, really try to know what the deists do at a time like this. While everybody is celebrating the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ, the death of our Lord Jesus Christ and his resurrection. We want to know what the deists think about.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sam. That's my friend. My friend is chiming in from Owerri. He's telling us to continue to pump with energy what we are doing. So
thank you.
Yeah, Sam. Sam, I appreciate your contribution and then the time you make out to stay with us. We're together in Owerri, and then he's been one good guy who has always tried to ask after how we are doing.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Yeah, while we are waiting for Mr. Nadi to come on, I think we can as well start when he comes in. I'm already trying to bring him on. Can you just address the question so that we can also, have this conversation wrapped up within a given space of time, like 1 hour. We should be able to wrap up this. So the question is, what roles does culture play in the development of trade and commercial activities? We are talking about within a space. So if you can just address the question for the audience so that we can get to know actually what this thing is all about.
Thank you, Mr. T. I think it's not just about understanding this question, but it's also about understanding the power of culture, what culture has done around the world. Because for me, culture is not just what I call in my own term the business pendulum, because it is also a pivotal part of trade and commercial activities. Because culture and the diversity of culture has always influenced the way we do business all around the world. And if we go back and forth, we can understand that trade has been fundamental in part of human relationship, and we cannot do without trade. And then we also have a form of history of different forms of exchange before the emergence of money. And then because it's been fundamental in human relation, in the olden days, if we flash back, I've read one novel that talked about trade before. And if I recall about what I've read before and then what I have come to understand about the role of culture in development of trade and commercial activities, I think in the olden time, different forms of culture and different forms of businesses tend to exchange or engage in business interactions or trade interactions by exchanging goods. They exchange ideas. They also exchange traditions, and then this has also impacted the way people speak different types of language, and then the way they communicate. It's just because of that business, and then that sort of development and development of trade and commercial activity in the process of doing business, because culture plays an important role. We cannot deny the fact that culture is the heart of what happens in the process of developing trade and then business commercial activities. For example, culture defines the trade norms. If not because of culture, most people wouldn't have been influenced by the way agreements are done. These things are influenced by culture. And then what is valuable? When we talk about what is actually valuable, then we bring in culture into the context. And we can also look at who to trust. Who do we trust? And then this trust issue has been consistent in different cultural platforms and spheres. And in terms of trading nuts, before the textile, before the issue of silk and all of those things, if we compare or if we look at how the Westerners and then the Middle Easterners have traded nuts, I think, cashew nuts and all of those nuts, different types of nuts, even till today, is still affecting the way people see these things and then the way people trade about these things. And then if we look at it closely, it is the role that culture plays in this and that makes it practically possible for people to engage in this type of business consistently and friendly and without any form of issues. But again, in the aspect of who do we trust and then what is allowed in terms of agreement, some agreements are more acceptable than the other because we have this type of what we call, when I studied what is called in intercultural communication in one of my masters, I think there's this thing we talked about then that is called low and high context cultures, especially the way people talk. The low context cultures talk differently from the high context cultures. The way Americans talk is basically different from the way an average Ghanaian or average Nigerian talks. But we have this similarity because we are also a form of high context cultures whereby we talk loudly, but some other cultures, they don't talk loudly, and then some form of things are acceptable in different cultures. For example, some cultural gestures like folding hands when people are talking, and then pushing your toes towards somebody when the person is talking, and then raising your thumbs. These are cultural gestures with specific meanings. Then if you don't understand what these things mean when interacting or communicating with somebody from different cultures, it can affect your relationship in business and everything, and it can minimize the level of trust between you and then the person. So, but when you understand these things in terms of what is valuable, and then that's the part of the role in defining this trade norms, what is valuable in this transaction. We're not talking about the way I do things. Are you following the thought?
Yeah.
The thought. We're not talking about the way I do things. We're talking about the way we should do things to process and to make this business transaction successful. That's the major thing. Whenever you see an American giving you a firm handshake, like you also see this thing in British context. I've seen it a lot. When you do things, when the person gives you a firm handshake, it's a form of approval that what you've done is been appreciated. So, irrespective of defining trade norms, a culture also plays an important role in defining the business etiquette and communication style. Communication style and business etiquette means that every culture has their specific norms and practices, the way they do things, because the way they pass the information is also another vital important thing that we have to be considering in the role that culture plays in development of trade and commercial activities. Because if you see, when we like the United Kingdom, they communicate through what I call subtle metaphors, what I call different forms of sarcasm. But if you're not immersed in the communication, you might not know. You might think that they're just speaking English. A few of them speak English directly. Just a few of them. Most of them normally communicate using this subtle sarcasm and subtle metaphorical way of addressing you. Because if somebody says, "Can't you see that something is frozen?" If somebody says that, "Can't you see that something is frozen?" The person is not telling you about what is frozen. The person is literally telling you that, telling you something else.
Yeah.
Communicating something else to you. And then that is also the importance of realizing that the power of culture in defining the business etiquette, and then also the communication style. In Japanese, if you want to effect a business transaction, if you want to make it more prosperous, I think you have to adopt the principle of bowing your head when you as a form of greeting. So it might not be the way you greet in your culture, but that doesn't make any sense. If you go to a company like Toyota or Suzuki, or if you want to deal with what do you call it, camera wise, Sony and all of those things, if you see an average Japanese and bow to the person will see it as a form of respect to him in their culture. Because if you don't need that Japanese in terms of buying a Toyota by going to Japan or doing all the business in Japan, you can equally stay back home and then live the way you want to live. But we're talking about this particular role. So it's important for people to understand before doing business. It's not just doing business to be successful is one thing, but also understanding what culture and does in the sphere of making sure that this business is successful, or this trade is developed, or these commercial activities go well, is very important. So if you go to Middle East, normally when you want to trade, we also did this thing when we were doing intercultural communication. When we go to Middle East, they are fond of giving you elaborate meal before business consultation or business talks. So somebody who eats too much, or if I might feel that he has just come to eat, but you don't have to be overwhelmed by the food in front of you. It's just a form of courtesy that we are respecting you, a form of hospitality in our culture that want you to eat with us and to show you that we have welcomed you so that we can talk about business. And then another thing that happens quite often in let me go back to Nigeria. You know, we have this form of way we communicate when we process. Like we now have something like Japa in our dictionary, in the modern dictionary of Nigerian English. You know, so when you're talking about Japa, and Japa is here and there. So when you're talking about Japa, how many people knows what is Japa? It's just our communication. We can use that thing even in the business, and then do like an educational form of business, and then transact it in a way that is effective without offending people. But when somebody asks you, how do you mean by Japa? You have the obligation to explain to the person some of the cultural nuances that the person doesn't understand. I mean, it's important. There are lots of things I could say. There are lots of things. This is something I have studied, and this is something. No, this is part of something I did. Cultural communication is something different, but I can gain a lot of insight from some of the things we did, and then it's quite important how these things play an amazing role in developing trade and big commercial activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chiedozie. You really, remove the cobwebs from some of us, me as in particular, because I've had cause to have interacted with some people, and then when a business is done, there has to be a handshake on it. If there is no handshake on it, it is assumed that the business is not concluded.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that happen when you move across boundaries, across cultures, and if you are not sensitive to some of these things, you may at the end of the day lose maybe a very, very good business opportunity. So thank you very much for trying to draw out all these nuances for our audience to understand them, that when you go into a business transaction with some people, you just have to try to understand those things that are important to them, not just important to them, those things that are important in a business relationship and transactions, so that when you understand them, you'll be able to make a good judgment of and good decisions also. So thank you very much for that. It's really eye-opening, some of the things you just told us now. So I want to ask you, can culture, affect the demand for certain things? Can culture affect? I'm trying to bring Sam on. Sam, if you are hearing us, try to shift, because it appears that your network is not strong enough where you are. It's happening for the first time with you. So, but I think if you can just shift, dress a little bit or shift a little bit, it will help the situation. So, Onyemere, while we are waiting for Sam to come up, I'm asking you to if culture can affect our demand for certain products.
Yes, of course, Mr. T. Culture can demand. I just want to talk about the need, because in this modern time where technology plays an important role in changing the way we interact or do business, I think that cultural consideration is also, it will continue to be relevant, because if the technology is not adapting to one's culture, it's always going to be difficult for people to begin to get interest in whatever business, or that business might not be sustainable in the long run, because some of the businesses you might do might end up in the short run. And that is also why a lot of businesses, they go bankrupt, because they have not been able to adapt properly to the demands of the local culture. Again, one of the things that make business, some of the business, perfect, or make them what they are, on the other hand, is the ability to prioritize cultural sensitivity. Because when you prioritize cultural sensitivity by embedding it in your marketing strategy and customer experience, because these are the two major building blocks in every successful business: the marketing strategy, and then what kind of cultural experience. That we have other ones, but when you are master, or when you perfect in these two skills, I think it can go a long way in working in any business company or organizations. So, take for instance, Coca-Cola. What kind of strategy do they use? And you see that everywhere they go, they normally succeed. But people haven't been able to think about the way their own brand resonate to the local culture. You know, the values. Before they come to do business all around the world, they always consider the local cultural values, and then that is why Coca-Cola has stood out in every culture around the world. It's not just about drinking Coca-Cola. It's about how their strategy has resonated with the local culture. Otherwise, why not bring up or initiate another form of soft drink, or something that can compete with Coca-Cola? You will in the end realize that the thing you're bringing out will never compete, because Coca-Cola is so intelligent in initiating a form of brand strategy that normally resonates with the local cultural values. And then when it resonates with the local cultural values, it means acceptance. It means appreciation. Just like when a Chinese person will value politeness in doing business, when Chinese person will value good relationship in doing business. They're not looking after, they're not only looking after your money, but they're also concerned about how the relationship they build with you is sustained. And you can see that today, in today's business world, most people can order things from China, and then it will be shipped back to them. This is about trust. This is about the norms I was talking about before, because those marketing strategy has resonated with local cultural values, and that's why the demand is always going higher than expected. So I think it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Exactly. Because like you said, people have gone to China, taking into consideration the demands from the local environment, and take it to China and then get those things, done for them, and they ship them back. That is just taking business out from your, maybe outsourcing, if you may, such that you are taking into consideration the local cultural traits and likes before you can now go outside to do business. That's a good one.
Yeah. If you check on Walmart again, Walmart didn't succeed in Germany as much as Coca-Cola succeeded in China. And also, if you go if you reflect as back as 10, 15 years ago, IKEA, Swedish IKEA, is a very popular brand. But when they started in China, they came in with their own cultural norms and some of the cultural principles about horizontal leadership. Whereas the leadership in China is not entirely horizontal leadership. You need to adapt to the leadership in China for you to be able to do business in a very successful way. So they couldn't adapt. They were wondering what was going on. But then later, IKEA didn't succeed in the Chinese environment. But there are other businesses from Sweden that succeeded in Chinese environment when they now went back and reflected on the flaws of what has gone between IKEA and the Chinese culture. They now improved, and then they later get into the market and then succeeded.
Okay, thank you very much. And then that brings me to the issue of cultural differences, something that you just pointed out, because IKEA could not succeed because it couldn't understand the culture of the environment where it came from. And in as much as they did not succeed, could these differences lead to a kind of misunderstanding and conflict? Could cultural differences and misunderstanding lead to conflict in a business relationship?
Well, I think everything comes down to the way we manage interactions, and that's also why I was speaking during our last session about ethics. Because if you see, it can, if it's not well managed, it can, of course. Take for instance the issue of culture. I come back again to religion. You know that religion is always around us in everything we talk about and in everything we do. We can never do without religion. I'm not mentioning particularly Christian religion. I am talking about religion in general because there are different forms of religion. Now, even culture impacts religion, and then in a way that impacts business relationship. Because when we talk about religion in that aspect, we're talking about the sphere of those ethical principles we were mentioning before, those ethical, those morality aspects that we bring into the business. And that's also one of the things that cultural differences can occasion. When we don't understand each other, there's bound to be cultural chaos or cultural breakdown. And once we have a cultural breakdown, nothing ever will happen, will make the business to succeed further. And that's also why it's important to study, to learn. Sometimes it's essential to learn some language even before you travel to that country to learn some basics about the language, you know, so that you can communicate to them in those basics. Because if I say ni hao is every time I see I learned a little bit of Chinese, and I also learned a little bit of Japanese, but I'm still learning, you know, because I love languages. I speak 5 of them now. But then if I say, if you see a Chinese person and say ni hao, the person will stop and start laughing. The person is not laughing because he just said ni hao, but because what you said resonates with his or her culture. Are you getting it now? And then the person is laughing. And if you say konnichiwa to a Japanese, the person will turn and greet you. And just like when you say keduki imere, mon ndekweni, you know, all of those things in our own language, the person will start laughing with you and begin to open up to you. That's why we need to manage cultural differences in a very effective way. Otherwise, if we look at that business of religion, the ethical side of transparency, trust, and then fairness in doing business, you can see that the Islamic commerce, Islamic business, a lot of Islamic business between themselves are built around these ethical principles of fairness. And that is why you see a meat, when you call some types of meat that when you call them halal, haven't you heard about halal? This meat is halal, you know. It is halal. It is halal because of those ethical principles guiding it. The rearing, the feeding, everything about that meat is called halal. And that's why wherever they go, they will always be looking for that halal meat. If the meat is not halal for them, they will not buy it. That doesn't mean that you can buy other meat that is not halal for you. If it is comfortable for you, you can buy it. But because of those influences of culture and religion, it has gone as far as influencing the way business is, trade is developed, and commercial activities are organized. So that's also something we need to understand, that managing this cultural difference is very important, not imposing your own culture on somebody else's culture. And that's one of the reasons why in Nigeria, and that's why when I go back to Nigeria, I'm going to do a lot in this aspect. That's one of the reasons why in Nigeria people are having difficulties in communication, because this part of ethnic area will believe that their own culture is, everybody believes that their own culture is the best, and then whatever you do, that is just all about their culture. No, we're not talking about our cultures. We're talking about the communication. If communication is experiencing breakdown all the time, we're not communicating. So we need to find the balance, find a level playing field where we can communicate properly in order to avoid cultural differences that might lead to cultural breakdown. So when it leads to cultural breakdown, it might also affect our businesses. And that is when you see, when it starts happening in Lagos, I'm just giving a specific example. When it starts happening in Lagos, somebody will go down online and saying, they are doing this, they are doing this, they are doing this. But there are other sort of things that another person might have done that caused all these things that you might not see. Because, you know, in today's social media, it's all about subtle bias. We've talked about bias before. It's all about subtle bias and then propaganda, and not giving the comprehensive view of a particular perspective. So it's very important for us to manage cultural differences in doing business. I think if we're able to do it in Nigeria, I think the sky is just going to be the beginning of our limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You talked about understanding, you know, in culture, that it is going to, you know, help in doing business across time and space. I just want to ask you, can businesses, you know, thrive on that? And if businesses can thrive on that, can this competitive advantage, you know, be developed through training or through education? When you are talking about cultural sensitivity, you know, understanding, you know, the other person and trying to, you know, tone down the tension wherever there's a misunderstanding. Can you develop cultural sensitivity and awareness through education, or is it through training?
Well, anyway, thank you, Mr. T. I think it's an amazing question. Like I said, most people don't understand that we live in an interconnected world, especially when people haven't been able to travel far and wide. So,
Yeah.
if we live in a if we live in an interconnected world, it means that the borders are shrinking all the time. The borders are shrinking. When you have one visa in the European context, you have one visa for about 28 countries or 27 countries or thereabout. If you have one visa in the UK, you have about a visa for about 3 or 4 countries. So we can learn cultural understanding is not just about education. It's not just about education. It's also about implementing what we have learned in education, because education is just the tool, and then education is very, very important in everything we do. And education is not just about going to university. Every education is not just about going to school. There are different forms of education, culturally and then metaculturally. So if we are so much focused on getting that education without implementing what we've learned, which is also the vital part of practical training. It's not just training, but practical training to help individuals to learn more about other cultures. I think it's going to help us a lot to start building a more prosperous society, because we always have cultural diversity, and this cultural diversity is always going to be there to help us to forge a stronger and tighter and successful partnership. We all need partnership in business, and without partnership in business, no business can thrive alone. If you want to build a better business, anyway, let's not just talk about that one. If you want to build a better business, you need partnership with colleagues that can help. It's not just about you. If the business is just about you, it is not going to last, or it's not going to be sustainable in the long run. So what we're talking about is that getting education and managing all this cultural understanding is very important, but also the need to be training. If you know something, because if you see, when I communicate to our, let me just use my own family to give example. You know that there are this way of communication, you know, the way to talk to people and then the way to talk to kids that we inherited from where we are coming from. But then, because I've seen different types of cultures, I normally start from 2 years, which is nothing, which is maybe the child might not even, I normally started in form of playing, you know, to pass this information in a way that will help the child. So today, whenever they go to school, they'll be asking us, how do we manage to do this? But it's something that I'm telling you now. It's not just about getting education, but it's about showing it in real life, how this thing works. So when somebody from your own culture is interacting with another person's culture, then the person will know the boundaries of communication between my culture and another person's culture. That is when the what we call cultural unity is going to help ensure that trade and commercial activities are more successful than it is today.
Thank you very much. When you're talking about success in trade and maybe competitiveness in trade, you know, between maybe a country, between one country and another, or between a space and another, it also means that there has to be a kind of creativity of sort. So how can culture drive creativity to gain an advantage in a business relationship?
Well, it goes back to the competitive advantage you narrowly talked about the last time. Nobody has them, just like power or violence or destruction or anything negative. Nobody has the monopoly of that. And competitive advantage is just something that is out there for anybody to explore or group of people to explore. And what I always say is, instead of blame game, we can look look beyond blame game and begin to develop products that will have a higher level competitive advantage in the market. When you are able to develop any form of concept in terms of trade or commercial activity that has a wider competitive advantage, people are always going to come to you. And let me refer you to one of these guys that developed something in Microsoft. You remember that Nigerian guy in America that developed something in Microsoft? Yeah.
Yeah.
What he developed has a competitive advantage, and then Bill Gates needs him because what he's developed, no other person has developed it. So there's nobody that is commanding this monopoly in competitive advantage and saying that even cultural creativity. It is only when you are able to explore. Because if you're not able to explore the cultural creativity is not something that is just abstract. Creativity is something you do, and people will begin to appreciate. So if we leave creativity as a form of something abstract, it means that individuals will never be able to appreciate what you're doing. Because this discussion we're doing here, if we don't discuss it every Sunday, we discuss it once a month. No, it might not make sense to people the way it will make sense to them. That we're discussing it every Sunday. That's also about creativity. So in every negative aspect, in every negative thing or negative context, there's always this positivity or positive advantage that we can gain, whether in business or anything. Look at, the only thing we need is just to use that cultural creativity and embrace people who are more knowledgeable than us. Because another thing that kills this thing is pride. When you're too proud, and then you don't know anything, but you're too proud. So, and even in one area of the religion, it talks about that even God doesn't like people who are proud. We need to be humble, because if we are humble to learn, then we can now use what we've learned to teach others, not what we've learned to oppress others. Teaching others and oppressing people with what we've learned, they are two different things. We have the obligation to teach others, to transfer knowledge to others, so that when we leave from here, others can continue from where we have stopped. And that's one of the things I wrote, and I've spoken it before here, that when you're helping, the best way to help is to build somebody who is larger and bigger than you. That is when you will be fulfilled. It's not just about helping people and then making sure that they're under you all the time. That is not help. It's also, that's good, but the biggest form of help is to build somebody to be higher than you. And then when you leave, the person will transcend, and then the person will go as further as celebrating you, because you are the one that built the person. But this is not what we grew up with, because everything in the Western world is been stationed. The higher person has been built, the future generation has been built, and then they keep on transferring this skill. So in terms of cultural creativity and benefiting from this competitive advantage, nobody tells us not to explore or not to take advantage of this creativity that we have. We have one particular type of cloth we wear now. I think you know the cloth called senator. Don't you like it?
Yeah.
Don't you like it? So almost everybody likes it. And that means that, I'm just giving you one example, because the problem is that when people are shouting, I talked about shouting is not communicating or communication. When you're shouting, you're not making much in terms of making sense. You have to, when you shout, it can diminish your capacity to listen to others. So there are different things that we can begin to explore today that can help us in developing. We're talking about developing trade and commercial activity in a way that gets a low of competitive advantage that can compete, not just about something that is superficial. We're not looking at it from the superficial lens. We're looking at it from the sustainability lens, whereby it will be sustained, it will be there even if we're not here, because businesses changes. And then technology, again, technology is also a culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Technology is another form of culture. Yeah. And then unless you're open to technology, you can never adapt or adopt that culture. If you're still so not really primitive, not really timid, but if you're still inside that box, and if you're still not been able to think outside the box and say, okay, let me embrace what has come to be, because this thing has come to be, you know. So that's another form of culture. But that doesn't mean that anybody has a monopoly of anything culture. My good brother that we have always discussed here, Sammy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when we
I've
talk
not
about,
been able to bring him on
yeah,
because I
you
think
know, when we yeah,
it's a
when we talk
network
about
issue.
no, no, when, I'm just saying something. When we talk about religion, you know, I have always been emphatic about that. You have to respect what people believe in, and he has also done well in that aspect, you know. And then that's why I also said, whatever he believes in, it's my obligation to love him. I don't care about what he believes in. It's my obligation to do good to him. It's his obligation to do good to me. That's the way to communicate. I don't care. I'm not here to start telling somebody don't believe in what you believe, and that's normally what we do. And then we don't know when we do these things. If you don't believe what I believe, then we become an enemy. That's not communication. So if we look at that religious aspect, religion has never told you and I've never seen it in the Bible that religion tells us, okay, sit down and just read the Bible and not walk. Even our own Christianity was saying that faith without work, good work is gibberish, you know. So it doesn't make any sense. So religion, this is where now we can explore and benefit. Even though we are religious, we can also use the aspect of religious and then put ethical principles in what we do. I think you saw one of the posts. There's one of the posts you were commenting. I don't want to talk about it because it's nasty for me. You know, I don't comment on. You were commenting what is happening here. You see what people are doing in social media. These are nasty things, and it all depends on what you want to work on, what you want to promote, what you want to engage with. It's a free world. You have the right to do whatever you want. So when we're talking about how we can narrow it down to benefiting from the way we create and then the way we make these things happen or gain more competitive advantage than others, we need collaboration. Then we also need to be able to learn from others that are more knowledgeable than us, so we can start working harder and start implementing some things like China has done. And you see today, just before I round off, today, Burkina Faso has declared a free tax zone in their country. Do you know about it? So this is, I think, is in a way to lure investors. This is what China did. You remember a couple of years ago, China did the same thing with declaring our country tax-free. So, but they have a motive. It's just a business strategy. So bringing in these companies, and then at a point, they now told the companies, we want quota. We want this percentage of quota to be employed, Chinese people to be employed in your company. And by then, their businesses have established. There's no way you can deny that demand or reject that demand. So they employ them, and they learned how to produce. Today, China is world power in terms of production. All of this tariff is just, for me, it's just a form of lip service because China has gone viral in terms of production. So when we begin to produce, but before you produce, there are things. It's not just about saying that we have to produce. There are other things that you have to set on board and set in place, and communication and understanding other people's culture is one of them, so that we can develop this trade and then commercial activity in a way that is viable for our community, for us, and for our next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You said something about understanding other people's culture, and I know that language is one of the things that we include in the culture of a people. And you also said that as of today, you have understanding of is it 3 or 4 or 5 languages? Are you?
No, I speak.
Are you? Are you suggesting to people to to take on the learning of languages so that it could help them in business and commercial activities?
Well, anyway, have you finished the question? Or
Yeah, that's my question.
okay. Like I said it before, you can learn the basics because some languages are difficult. You can learn the basics. I mean, the basics of communication. Most countries today, they speak English because English is a lingua franca. And being a lingua franca, you don't have to speak English like a British with British accent or with American accent. It doesn't make any sense in the domain of lingua franca. or if you, whatever accent you want to employ is up to you. It's up to you. So, but when you want to do a business in another culture that is different from your culture, I think it's important for you to learn the basics in that language, to be able to communicate. You might not get in depth, but learning the basics of communication can empower you, can help you meet people that might not open up to you if you're speaking only English. Although they speak English, but writing contract, in contract law, there's a way people draft all these things. It's just formalized. But when we talk about the informal aspect, there are many things you can gain with language. When I played a little bit of football in Germany, whenever I came, I normally get into language and start learning. It's difficult, but I love it because my father was speaking about 18 languages in Nigeria before he died, and my father was speaking Fulani and interpreting it, and he did interpretation. He worked in court a lot of time and all of those things. But then when you came back, when you've lived in the north for couple of times, sometimes you see all this language. They always call him, even until he died, to help translate. Whenever the Northerners come around outside, they speak with him. So what I'm saying is that learning these basics can help you, can elevate you to a stage you might never expect in the business sphere. If you see like I said now, if you want to call attention for a Chinese, if you just say ni hao, the person will stop immediately and give you audience. You understand? But if you say hello, hello is a little bit common, but not common in all the languages. You understand? So if you tell somebody konnichiwa, the person from Japan will give you an audience. So it doesn't really mean that you have to do it all the time, because there are some businesses you don't need language, because the trust has already been built by other people before you. I'm getting it now. So there were people that spoke these languages that made name, that built trust with these particular cultural idiosyncrasies there, and then they were able to maintain that trust. So you're coming in to benefit from what other people have built. In that context, you don't need so much of a language. You just need to do transaction. You can forward your money or transfer your money to the company, and the company will send it to you. But that you're not getting in depth. Are you getting me now? You're not getting in depth. If you really want to get in depth and know a little more about that thing, getting basics about their language, and even getting more about their language, will help you go far than not knowing anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nadi has been trying to, he sent me an invite. I've been trying to bring him on, but I don't know actually what is wrong with his connection. But as it is, we crack on. If at the end of the day he's able to join us, that will be icing on the cake.
It happened to me last Sunday anyway.
Yeah, it did indeed. Do you, what are the factors you, having said all those things, are there other factors you think could, a businessman could leverage on, or could leverage culturally to gain a competitive advantage in doing business with people who are of a different culture?
Well, anyway, there's also what we call cultural intelligence. That's also part of what we've been saying here. Cultural dynamics and cultural intelligence and cultural communication and cultural, all of those things. As far as the communication is not breaking down in the business communication or in developing trade or commercial activity, because I think that what is going to be the outcome, and a positive outcome, is always more important than negative outcome. For example, a lot of Chinese people are doing road construction in Nigeria, isn't it? And and then, do you know that there are some times that they will want to construct a road in Nigeria? They will do it in the night for people not to learn. Do you know that? They will do it in the night, whereas they do the minor ones in the morning. That's also because some of them, but if you are really deep in that culture, or if you know the basics about how to communicate with that culture, you can learn some secret. Because there are sometimes somebody will be speaking English and then they will never see you as somebody who speaks English. You'll be laughing because you hear all the communication going on. You understand? So I think as far as the people, as far as the people are willing to learn the trade norms, because the culture is defining the trade norms, and as far as people are willing to learn the cultural intelligence surrounding every cultural business activity or commercial activity or trade development that they're engaging themselves with, it's always going to be a way to foster strong community in that sphere of business, and then make things work as a community of people doing things together, not just as an individual. Because if you don't learn, if you're not open to learning, and that's also why if you watch most people who are well educated, they will always tell you that learning is endless. There's always going to be an opportunity to learn one thing or the other until somebody passes on, you know. And I think if we are able to understand the ethical side of what culture has imposed on religion and religion has imposed on business, it's also going to be helping us to be efficient in carrying us these commercial activities. You know, we can understand that technology is also another form of culture that we need to adapt to. Otherwise, it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot in this modern time. It's changing a lot of ways that we're doing business. But still, cultural consideration is relevant. It can never be downplayed by any form of technology, because technology, for technology to prosper or to get the required result, technology needs to listen to the cultural consideration of a particular context. Otherwise, that technology will not be efficient in carrying out the duty of business or the duty of developing a better trade and commercial activity. So we need to think about a customer in the background. We need to think about the strategy in the background. We need to think about the culture. While we're thinking about the marketing strategy, we also have to be thinking about the cultural strategy we're going to apply towards this marketing strategy to make it more effective in carrying out our business activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can you finally? I just want you to run in summary. Give us your final on this matter, because I think you really have done great and done justice to this topic. Can you just round off so that our audience will know that the high points of this show, so that our audience will get to have a refresher to go home with?
Well, businesses need to navigate through complex international trade, because international trade is complicated and overly complex. And for you to be able to play a significant role in adapting to international trade or developing trade or cultural activities, we have to listen to the cultures beyond the cultures where we are coming from, because listening to all the cultures can go a long way in enhancing strong partnership. We also need to understand that culture is pivotal in every business. That before even the issue of monetary system came in, trade has been, people have been engaging in trade by exchanging ideas, exchanging goods, and also exchanging traditions. And it has gone a long way in affecting the way we speak, and then the way we interpret things, and then the way we misinterpret things in different contexts. And then that's also why it's also important to listen to not only what the culture denotes, but also what the culture connotes, in order to not to take something so personal when you are communicating in a culture that is alien to you. But if we are talking about a successful and a stronger business model that can help us to develop trade and that can help us to develop a successful trade and commercial activity, we also have to make sure that we have to make sure that we minimize as much as we can cultural breakdown when carrying out all these cultural activities. Again, I want to say that monetary system just came the other day, and then we know the history. People were dealing with trade and barter. Trade by barter, and then in the process of trading by barter, it's also cultural influence that made these things happen. I have this thing in my culture, you have this thing in your culture, or I have this thing of valued in my culture like this. There was no monetary aspect of that business. It was just about value in terms of cultural perspective. And then I have these things in this thing that worth this value in my culture. Can you give me that thing that you have that has this value? I am placing that thing that you have, this particular value. Can you place my own, this particular value? And then they exchange. If my own thing is more valuable than what you have, you can also add some little bit of things for me to be satisfied. This is what has been done culturally before the emergence of money. And money is just a medium for exchange. Anything can be called money. People tend to
money, huh?
Yeah, anything can be called money as long as it's just a medium for exchange in terms of notes and coins. That's just money. So whatever you can build something and still call it money too. So if we listen, as far as the question is, what is the role of what role does culture play in developing trade and commercial activity? We have to be cognizant of the fact that we are living in a diversified world where diversity and inclusion is the modus operandi today. And then we have to be conscious of how we approach others while realizing that the baggages we have might be something that others might not accept. We also have to be able to listen to what I call the communication of the extroverts and then the communication of introverts, because these two communications are quite different in the business world. While the introvert communicates with gestures, cues that you can learn indirectly, the extrovert communicates openly in a way that you can see by different means of communication that you can observe. But then the introverts, we don't have to relegate the introverts in a way that will be harmful to them. We also have to consider them while communicating. And if we bring everything together, I think with cultural awareness and cultural intelligence and cultural communication, I think everything is possible in this interconnected world where opportunity is endless. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Onyemere. You've really blown you've really expanded my understanding of certain concepts here. Honestly, in the course of this podcast and talk show, I've come to learn a whole lot of things from you guys from on the other side, and I must really thank you for today for having stepped up where the other two eggheads were not there. Mike and Sam, you've really done justice to this topic. You've really made me to understand certain things that before now I didn't even know about. Having said that, I want to thank you once. I want to thank you once again, and I want to thank our audience. I want to thank especially Samuel Biska, KK11, Algeria, Gava, New Day, and all those who made our time to be with us on this show. Sam was not able to come on due to one issue or the other. I wouldn't know, but he's been watching, and I know that he may be he may have wanted to come on, but for one thing or the other, he's not able to be part of this show. But nonetheless, my shout out goes to you and all those who have stayed the course with us. In this season of Easter, we want to also extend our prayer and our wishes of good tidings and good things to happen to all of us in this period of Easter. Tomorrow is still another day. Tomorrow is still part of the Easter celebration, and we wish you fun-filled celebration, and always for you to know the reason for the season. So having said that, I want to thank you once again, Onyemere, knowing that in a diversified world calls for understanding of cultures. so that we'll be able to leverage and interact and be able to make the most in an endless possibilities that the present world presents. So thank you very much. It is also important that
Thank you,
when you're
brother.
doing business, you try not to allow cultural differences to cause a breakdown in whatever business transactions you are involved in. As you do that, we continue to, make the most of what we have and try to use that diversity to expand the bounds of technology to create more for the world. Having said that, I want to thank you guys and assure you that we're still coming back your way next Sunday. Onyemere, once again, thank you very much and have a wonderful week ahead. Sam, I want to thank you for having kept on watching. Yeah, I'm talking to Sam, even though he's not able to come on. He was he's been watching all through.
Sammy, greetings. Happy Easter.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And have a wonderful week ahead, guys. Bye.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah,
Take
bye.
care.
Yeah, bye.